So I've got a pretty frightening, pretty much kind of a breaking story for you guys. And so, what's been going on is apparently Trump has sought options for attacking Iran to stop its growing nuclear program. And interestingly enough, here's something really interesting. It says the president was dissuaded from moving ahead with the strike by advisors who warned that it could escalate into a broader conflict in his last weeks in office. So it says President Trump asked senior advisors in an Oval Office meeting on Thursday whether he had options to take action against Iran's main nuclear site in the coming weeks. The meeting occurred a day after international inspectors reported a significant increase in the country's stockpile of nuclear material, four current and former U.S. officials said on Monday. A range of senior advisors dissuaded the president from moving ahead with the military strike. The advisors, Vice President Mike Pence, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, Christopher C. Miller, the acting defense secretary, and General Mark A. Milley, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, warned that a strike against Iran's facilities could escalate into a broader conflict in the last weeks of Mr. Trump's presidency. It says any strike, whether by missile or cyber, would almost certainly be focused on Natanz, where the International Atomic Energy Agency reported on Wednesday that Iran's uranium stockpile was now 12 times larger than permitted under the nuclear accord that Mr. Trump abandoned in 2018. The agency also noted that Iran had not allowed it access to another suspected site where there was evidence of past nuclear activity. One thing I find funny about this is the IAEA, the Republicans basically said, they're not doing inspections or stuff like that. They were obviously doing inspections, and as you can see, they're finding the numbers are changing right now, just like how they found previously that it wasn't under the Iran deal. The numbers were down in terms of the levels of the uranium stockpile. It goes on to say, Mr. Trump asked his top national security aides what options were available and how to respond. After Mr. Pompeo and General Milley described the potential risks of military escalation, officials left the meeting believing a missile attack inside Iran was off the table. Mr. Trump might still be looking at ways to strike Iranian assets and allies, including militias in Iraq. A smaller group of national security aides had met late Wednesday to discuss Iran the day before the meeting with the president. So, it's really bizarre. It's really, really bizarre because Trump has this really weird, hate boner for certain things. Okay, one of those hate boners is Obamacare, and I want to see if you can see the trend here. Another one is Iran, and another one is Cuba. He has, these weird hate boners for very specific things that are just happen to be keystones of Obama's administration, right? What are the real keystones of an Obama presidency? ACA, and foreign policy wise, it has to be the Iran deal, and it's not even close. Okay, the Iran deal was sort of the crown jewel of their foreign policy, if they even had any good ones outside of that, right? The Iran deal was great. You had the IAEA able to go in and inspect. They agreed, okay, we're not gonna, grow our nuclear stockpile. The U.S. said, okay, and in exchange, we are going to release our frozen assets of yours. So when Republicans always say, oh, Obama gave them, these millions or billions or whatever, they didn't give them anything. That was their money. We had just froze it. We just froze their assets. We said, here you go. You can have it back now. So it's really scary because he clearly has this hate boner for anything that Obama's involved in. Remember, he reversed the Cuba negotiations that we had done, where we had opened up our border to them and everything, and it was starting to really normalize. We're starting to normalize relations with Cuba again, but he reversed it for some reason. Really bizarre, don't you think? Why would Trump have such an opinion on Cuba? Same thing goes for the ACA. This is a guy who just hates anything that Obama did and anything that Obama is attached to. And so I think at the end of the day, that's what this comes down to. Because honestly, what other reason does he have to have such a bizarre hate boner for Iran? And it's really scary because, he might attack them during the ends of your presidency. And you really shouldn't be doing that, especially because there's another administration incoming. But I'm afraid of what he's going to do in this lame duck period, because obviously he's pissed off that he lost. And I'm really worried, man, what is he going to do in this lame duck period? What is he going to do in this time where Joe Biden has won the election, but he's only president-elect? He hasn't taken over yet, right? We have to wait till January 20th, That's still a couple months. It's almost 2 months away. So I'm very afraid of what he's going to do in that time frame as payback to the American people. Very, very afraid. Very afraid that he's going to rise escalations with Iran. I'm very hopeful that Joe Biden will rejoin the nuclear program again once he comes into office, but passing it through the legislature would make it more permanent because otherwise the Republican president can just, unilaterally do away with it. But hopefully, I don't think he's going to be able to get it through the legislature, but even if he joins via executive orders, better than nothing, I guess, but it doesn't help anything permanent-wise. But definitely very worrying to see that Trump is doing this with Iran right now. He might try and strike Iran. I'm hoping that nothing ends up happening. But there's also one other point that I really wanted to make. And so this has to do a lot with like people like Jimmy Dore or that crystal ball video that we had looked at recently. And remember in that crystal ball video where she was saying that, she was basically saying, the removals of the current people who are in office, the, what was it, the acting, defense secretary or whatever, she wasn't mad about them being fired or worried because, they're with Raytheon and stuff like that. And these are the kinds of situations where that kind of linear thinking does not work. And it similarly works because we know now that Donald Trump wanted to kill Bashar al-Assad, okay? And you want to know who prevented him from doing so? It was James Mattis. So Trump has a history now of doing wanting to do crazy shit on the foreign policy end, but then his own people have to reel him in like, dude, what the hell are you talking about? You can't just do that. That's too crazy. So as these people try to claim that Donald Trump is anti-war or whatever, the Democrats are the imperialists and all this stuff, Trump has wanted to do way more than Democrats have ever dreamed of doing, and really has done in a lot of ways. But, that sort of anti-establishment thinking, you would imagine that it would be the other way around. But that's why you have to actually read the details of scenarios and actually think. It's another situation of literally the deep state has stopped Donald Trump from bombing Iran. You know what I mean? It's absolutely insane. So Trump should get a ton of shit for this, man.